there is no substitute. We have a headline on our websites clearly stating there's no substitute for silver. DuPont, who's the largest silver paste manufacturer for solar panels, they've been trying to reduce the amount of silver they use in this paste, for economic purposes. The word that I've heard from experts in the area is they pretty well or have already reached the limit. They just can't reduce more silver. Or they just start losing efficiencies. So whether that's exactly true or not, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but that's the information I've been able to gather. I saw an article out of London, England, just about 2 weeks ago, suggesting that in 2022 there's going to be 140 million ounces of silver consumed in the solar panel industry, which is a pretty big number. Because the number for 2021, we don't know what it is yet. It's not public, but it's somewhere around 100 million ounces. So whether it's a 30-40% increase year over year, that's a pretty darn big number. And the miners are only producing 800 million ounces in 1 year. So you got one buyer for almost close to 20% of the entire supply. And then you've got, the electric car industry, and I haven't seen the 2020 production numbers yet. I'm not sure why they're not out. I've looked for them, but haven't been able to find them yet. But the 2019 numbers, there was 95 million cars built worldwide, and there's less in 2020, of course, of COVID and so on and so forth. But 2019, and of those 95 million cars built in 2019, 5 million of them were electric vehicles. And we consume 60 million ounces of silver to produce those 5 million electric cars. Mm-hmm. So, if governments want to reduce or increase the electric vehicle fleet on the planet, they're not going to do it at 5 million cars a year. They're going to have to do it at 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 million cars a year. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to get there? I don't even think the manufacturing, like Volkswagens, Audis, BMWs, Mercedes, Teslas, they're just ramping up now. So it's going to take them a couple of years to get close to those kinds of numbers. And if 5 million ounces, 5 million electric cars equals 60 million ounces, you do the math. That's a lot of silver in a pretty small market.
Mm-hmm. And at 5 million vehicles per year being produced, you're probably not even replacing the amount of internal combustion engines that are coming off of the market, off of the roads, right?
I wouldn't think so. These are people that are just buying new cars, and their used car goes to a family member or it gets sold, mm-hmm. and gets resold. So that fuel combustion car, still, you're right. That's a fantastic point. It's still on the road. You just added another car. Mm-hmm. There's about 1.4 billion cars sitting on the surface of the earth right now, apparently.
Mm-hmm. So is it possible that silver recycling ever becomes an important source of supply in the near future, Keith?
It's back in 2011 when silver hit $50. According to the Silver Institute, the recycling hit 240 million or 250 million ounces that year. It was the highest ever. This is where all the silverware started coming into the system. Anyone that had it was just free money, basically, I guess, in a way. And so all of a sudden, all the silver hit the market. So what would the price have to be for that to occur again? Because the theory is that silver's gone now. It's been consumed in electronics. So, you would need what, $80, $100 silver before you'd have a huge influx of new recyclable metal. I don't know. I personally invested in a couple of recycling companies here in Canada, and two of them are bankrupt. One is still surviving because it's just so difficult to get this metal out of these electronics. These electronic manufacturers are very good at embedding tiny amounts of gold and silver and copper into layers and layers of silicon wafers and computer boards, and to get it out, it's just not economic. So a lot of this computer waste just builds up, and And even China is not taking computer waste anymore because of the pollution that it was causing, because they were just burning it. They were putting it in their smelters to just try to melt it down, and it was causing all kinds of issues. So a lot of this computer waste is just sitting there accumulating. During the photographic age, and when the photography industry was using or consuming 25% of the world's supply of silver, that most of that silver was recycled. Because when that film got dropped off at the local photography store, the liquids that were used to make those or develop those films was accumulated, and it was picked up by groups that actually took the silver out of this liquid, and it was actually quite a large business. But that business is pretty well gone now.
So, Keith, do you think that the current pricing system for the metals is broken?
I do, and I suppose it depends on what side of the equation you're on it. But if you're part of the system, part of the banks, yeah, I think they love it. But if you're a miner, who feels that we're not getting fair dollar for our metal that we use blood, sweat, and tears to pull out of the ground and process and get into industry, and such a critical strategic metal, I'm referring to silver. It's shocking that what we get paid for such a critical metal. And I've said a dozen times, and I don't get a lot of traction, unfortunately, because I feel somewhat alone often. The miners really need to get together and create a new system. And why does look at how uranium trades. It's a by contract, and then there's no futures market. Oil, I think oil trades more fairly than because there's so many big players in it. It's more supply demand fundamentally driven, but even it's politically driven to a point. But I just think we need to get rid of the COMEX. I think the COMEX is really the problem. When you can write a billion ounces of silver in a single day, when the miners are only producing 800 million ounces of silver in a full year, that shows you there's a problem. I think the miners just have to break their relationship with the banks, and it's hard. It's hard to do. And the problem is, a miner produces two types of products. One is a smelting, like a concentrate, where which is a combination of a variety of different metals and basically just a pile of black powder, and it's very hard to get rid of. Each one of these piles, depending on what mine it comes from, they're all chemically different, and they all take different processes. And the miner has to find a home for this product. And most of these homes are in China or Korea or, in some cases, Europe or potentially Japan. But there's very few in North America. There's only a couple. So it's hard to dispose of this concentrate. And there's lots of pollutants in this stuff. It's you're wanting the silver and the gold, of course, or the copper, because that's where the money is. But there's lots of things. There's selenium. There's all kinds of bad arsenic. There's all kinds of bad stuff in there. So, anyways, it's very expensive, and it's hard to break the relationship because you have a financial relationship with the smelter, who's got a relationship with the bank, and they already have homes for all the metal. Right, so that creates a very difficult thing to break and rebuild that system in some other way. You almost have to own the smelter, and which a lot of mining companies don't own their own smelters. Doré producers, of which First Majestic is, fortunately, all our four mines produce doré bars, and this is a nice refined product. It's and there's lots of places to send it. In the United States, there's probably a dozen refineries in the United States, and then Canada. So it's easy to get rid of, easy to refine to a triple digit a triple nine pure commercial bar, 1,000 ounce. It's very easy to do. And we can warehouse these bars, which we do. You've seen us hold back our sales a number of times. And we can do that because we have these physical bars. If we were producing a concentrate, we couldn't do that. So for a company like ourselves, it's easy for us to break that relationship with the bank because we just eliminate them. And we say, and then we go right to Sony or Apple or whomever, and say, yeah, we'll give you our supply. We're not going to fix a price. You're still going to be subject to price fluctuations, but we'll guarantee that you get X amount of our metal. And then those are the kinds of contracts I think that we should be looking to achieve.
Mm-hmm. So could you see, a possible scenario where there are, let's say, 5 mining companies in one particular area that all go in together to buy their own smelter to kind of help break that relationship?
It's possible. It's tough permitting a smelter. One of the reasons why there's not that many smelters in North America is because no one wants a smelter in their backyard. That's why most smelters are in China and places like that. Yeah, and they're very expensive. So to build one permit, you're probably talking like $1 billion and probably 10 years of work, and it's a big commitment, but it could be of interest.